in the International Labour Standards Department of International Labour Office, ILO, and bears responsibility for issues related to the implementation of maritime and fishing conventions. Prior to that, she worked for the Bureau of Workers' Activities in the ILO, where she was in charge of assisting the ILO workers group and trade unions from different countries in work related to international labor standards and ILO supervisory mechanisms. Her former experience includes working for the ILO Training Center in Turin, where she was responsible for a training project on freedom of association, the ILO Labor Standards Department in Geneva, and the judiciary in Argentina. And she's going to give us an update on Seafarer Identity Document Conventions. So, Beatrice, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, first of all, to the colleagues in ICAO for organizing this presentation. I'm very happy to be able to share some minutes with you. And sorry, I couldn't make it to Montreal this time. So maybe first a warning. I'm not at all an expert in biometrics and all the complex and important issues that you have been discussing during this week. However, if we move to the next slide, I can tell you about the purpose of my presentation, which is on the one hand to discuss about the importance of seafarers' identity documents for seafarers' lives, for their quality of life, and second to explain why the ILO needs the support of ICAO and its member states regarding seafarers' identity documents. So let me first remind, if we go to the next slide, remind you about the fact that we often forget more than 80% of the global trade is transported by shipping. So most of the goods that we use every day have been transported by shipping thanks to the work of seafarers. So their work, it's a dangerous one. It entails, among other things, being far away from home from many, many months, and therefore there is an important sacrifice they also do. So in order to conduct their work, seafarers have to transit from one country to another to join their vessels. And also, very importantly, seafarers have a right to shore leave while they are in port. This right to shore leave, it's a fundamental element for the safety and health of seafarers, for the physical health of seafarers, but also for their mental health. We should not forget that seafarers can be on board for up to 11 months without one day off. There's not anything such as a day off when you are on board. And therefore, the couple of hours that they may be in a port, they will walk in a normal city, visit the welfare centers is very, very important. Also seeing other people than just the colleagues who are on board. So this is why, if we move now to the next slide, this is why the ILO regulated seafarers' identity documents to facilitate seafarers' transfer and transit and to allow access to shore leave without a visa. So this is a key point, and of course you are experts in this field. You understand that getting a visa for any country where a seafarer will be for a couple of hours, it's impossible. And therefore these facilities to be able to be to have the shore leave without a visa is key for them. So in this context, the ILO adopted the first convention already in 1958, regulating seafarers' identity document. At the time, the SAD had no security features. It was just a list of elements that had to be contained in the document. Following the 2011 event, the ILO revised its previous convention and adopted a new one, and this is Convention 185 that I will be talking about. And this convention at the time was in line with the third edition of ICAO Doc 9303, and it requested a fingerprint in a two-dimensional barcode. But as you know, very quickly the ILO convention became obsolete because ICAO, you moved forward with another technology, and very quickly we all realized that it was impossible to have SIDs with a barcode that could not be read anywhere. And therefore it took some time, but after a lot of discussions, and also very importantly thanks to the support of the ICAO colleagues who came to Geneva, who came to ILO meetings and advised, we managed to amend our convention to align it with the 7th edition of ICAO Doc 9303. And our convention now reads ICAO Doc 9303 as it may subsequently be amended, which means that any further amendments or changes that you will do in the future will automatically also apply to the ILO convention and to the technology that has to be used for seafarers. So as of June 2017, the ILO standards are perfectly, I would say, aligned with ICAO standards concerning the seafarers' identity documents. So now if we move to the next slide, we can discuss about what are the current requirements very, very simply. So the seafarer's identity document that we can now call an ESID, of course you have the e-passport, so we can speak about the ESID, can be of the TD1, TD2 or the TD3 size. The biometric required now is a facial image in a contactless chip, so the barcode and the fingerprint have been removed. And the logical data structure in an ESID works exactly as the one of a passport. So as we understand now, all border points should be able to support the verification of seafarers' identity documents. So that's the situation concerning the technology. Let's move now and have a look at what is going on in practice. So the situation is not that nice in practice. So 35 member states are bound by the requirements of Convention 185, and 35 may look like a very low number. However, among these 35 countries, we have the most important, the largest labor supplying countries for the maritime sector. So we have Russia, we have the Philippines, we have India, Indonesia, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, and as the SID can only be issued by the country of nationality of the seafarer or the country of permanent residence of the seafarer, we can say that, I mean, a very important majority of the around 2 million seafarers are covered by this convention. China has not ratified yet, and China is currently the main and the most important labor supplying country, so we are working on that. So what is the situation? Countries are moving towards the implementation of the new ESID at different stages. Many of them are struggling with technology, they are struggling with financial difficulties. We know, however, that the Philippines, India and Russia are quite advanced in this process, and more specifically the Philippines has informed that in the coming months they will be rolling out the new ESID for all their seafarers. So in practice, seafarers continue to encounter difficulties and barriers for transit and shore leave, and we've heard from seafarers that they see really, they feel discriminated when they see that flight attendants and pilots will go very smoothly with very specific line, while they are often treated as criminals or suspected people. So they see that in practice things are not working. And in this context, we have received, the ILO has received a strong mandate from our constituents, from ship owners, seafarers and governments, to continue promoting not only the ratification, but especially the effective implementation of this convention. So this is where I can move now to the second question that I wanted to address, and this is why the ILO and its members need your support concerning this issue. And when I say your support, of course I refer to the respected delegates attending this conference, but also to the companies and to the providers of the industry that we hope will also have an interest in this situation. So you might know that the ILO is celebrating this year its 100th anniversary. So we do have a long experience in supervising the implementation of labor standards and conventions. However, the ILO lacks the competence and the knowledge to supervise the implementation of the technical aspects of DOC 9303. In addition, at the national level, the expertise on electronic travel documents is usually with the passport authorities, and ILO normally deals with the maritime and the labor authorities. So we are missing this connection between these different authorities at the national level, and this is also creating problems with the implementation of this convention. And finally, we also see that some ILO members approach companies for support, and they request them to issue seafarers' identity documents, but then when we see the specimen, we realize that these are absolutely not in conformity with DOC 9303. So we really appeal to your support, and we have identified, also in discussion with some of the colleagues in ICAO, some of the possible actions for the future. So one element would be that when you provide assistance regarding e-passports, and in parentheses I heard from the session before that this is of course not an easy issue for you, and you're still working on the full and correct implementation of e-passports. But the idea would be that when assistance is provided regarding e-passports, ICAO or the relevant member states providing that assistance could also assist in the implementations of e-SIDs, since the technology is the same. We would also like to see if it is possible that ILO can submit the specimens of seafarers' identity documents to ICAO, so that ICAO can assess compliance with the technical aspects of Doc 9303 and therefore with Convention 185. And a final element, we would really encourage e-passport providers to familiarize themselves with the content of Convention 185 and the relevant technical requirements, so that they can offer products which conform both with the ILO and ICAO standards. So I will leave you in this presentation, of course, the list of ratifying countries. You can also check the detailed requirements of Convention 185 that are available on the ILO website. And you have my contacts, but you have also the contacts of Dr. John Campbell, he is an expert in biometrics, and he works very closely from the ILO. So with this, I really thank you for your patience, for your attention, and I really hope that we can join forces in this context of one UN efforts, that ILO and ICAO can join forces to make this facilitated transfer and access to shore leave a reality for seafarers, therefore improving their quality of lives, and also making ship owners to benefit from this, because of course ship owners have an interest in having healthy seafarers on board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beatrice, for a very succinct presentation there. Just wanted to let you guys know that if you have any questions for Beatrice, you can send it to tripsymposium@icao.int, and we can forward it to her to respond at the end of the session. The next person, he has a very long resume, so I'm going to read only a part of it, right? Very distinguished resume. This is Diego Enriquez, who is a lawyer by profession. Currently, he is the General Director of the Legal Technical National Directorate of Migration, Ministry of Interior, Public Works and Housing in Argentina. He is also simultaneously the General Director of Information Analysis and Migratory Control. And before that, he was the Legal and Technical General Director for the Government Control Agency in the autonomous city of Buenos Aires. He was also an associate judge and acting federal judge, Federal Court of Dolores in the province of Buenos Aires. And his private activity, he is the board president of the company File Bureau SA, dedicated to consultancy in documentary analysis, projects of reconversion, and re-engineering of processes and application of information technology. He is going to be talking to us about development of in-house technical capability, which I think is a very important topic for most states here. Diego, the floor is yours. And the presentation will be in Spanish, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Bueno, muchas gracias.
Thank you very much for your attention and for the invitation to the International Civil Aviation Organization to allow us to share the experience of the Argentine government. We have been working hard to develop our potential in applications for immigration and systems, and I believe that we've been quite successful, and we're very grateful to be able to share our experience with you. Basically, the first thing to be said and to reinforce ICAO's principle is that when ICAO didn't exist yet, and when there was civil aviation without ICAO, Argentina became a modern state in the 19th century, and we had a large territory with a small population, and we had immigrants coming to our country, and that was the only way we could develop and become great. And starting in the 1870s, we introduced immigration policies which were successful, and 35% of the Argentine population is descended or is first-generation immigrants. But to develop our policy, we had to deal with two basic concepts, and this is something ICAO represents: security, and of course that involves technology, and also security, as well as sanitation and health issues. Of course, health and sanitation is very important, although it's not part of ICAO's ambit. If you've ever been to Buenos Aires, you know that we have well-developed infrastructure, and we have our friends from Homeland Security with us, and they too have developed a similar infrastructure to ours. So from the outset, we faced a challenge, and that was that we had to recognize that Argentina, at the beginning of immigration, wasn't sufficiently developed and hadn't caught up with international standards. But we have been adapting over time at various paces, and today I think we can say that in a short period of time we've achieved a great deal. We've been able to rise to the challenge and meet the needs of today's world and address these issues properly. We want to be a country of facilitation, but we also want to be a secure country and have information. We need to be able to offer information and receive information. And for that purpose, it's essential to introduce technologies and keep up with the pace of technological development, as well as international community standards. So what did we do? We had to do everything in-house. We had a lot of work to do with very few resources. Of course, resources are always scarce, according to the first law of economics. And in addition to not having enough resources, we didn't have very much time. So we had to decide on priorities and next steps and identify our strengths. We determined that our main capital was human resources. So we understood that working toward international standards in a fast and effective way required human resources. So we built on the human capital that we had available to us. We had a lot of human resources and very good quality. So we were able to meet the needs. And what exactly did we do? Basically, the Argentine Immigration Office controls immigration movements, and we admit foreign residents, and we also manage information. Without information, we can do nothing. Without information, we can't facilitate, we can't be open. Without information, we can't be secure. And we can't share information with other countries. Argentina has always been an open country. So our aim is to get informed so we can continue to be open, an open country. And that's just what we did. We are quite happy because we achieved this in a short period of time, in 3.5 years. To be exact. So on the slide, you see the various elements involved. We started our work in 2016, and we started from scratch. There was nothing in place when we started. But we did have excellent human resources as an asset, and so we were able to develop everything in-house. And the international organizations told us that our human capital was excellent too, of good quality. So it's not just us saying that. And we undertook a major task. We applied technologies to develop our systems, technologies that were available. Ms. Tubulka before us talked about the 24/7 Interpol database, so we simply connected to the system. We have immigration registration database that's also accessible 24/7, and Interpol consults our database and vice versa. So it's a two-way street, and the immigration office works jointly with Interpol and their office in Argentina. So there is an open channel of communication between our immigration office and Interpol. API PNR, well, a lot has been said about that, and we've got a lot of good information about these applications, which are essential for civil aviation security, so I'm not going to dwell on that for too long. But I don't want to be unfair to Vijay. Yesterday's moderator, he asked us to share experience implementing API, and I'm a bit selfish, I have to say, because I'm going to tell you here and now what our experience was. We had a tender to start with. It was an open tender, of course, as it should be, and Argentina was the first country in the world to have 2 API providers. I won't say very much about this, but basically we divided up the zones for API provision. And we put our trust in the system, and it worked. And API is provided by 2 different businesses, the biggest in the world, and we haven't had any hiccups. And we have full online implementation throughout the country and all airports, and all that was done in just 15 months, which is a very tight turnaround time. And there were some glitches along the way, but we were able to achieve it in 50 months. Of course, according to ICAO's recommendations for a single window, the immigration office has a single window, and then the information is submitted to the police, the airports, and other relevant entities. So we have integrated immigration, the airports authority, the civil aviation authority, and of course the customs, and they all work together. And it's one single window distributing the API to all of those relevant entities. So everyone who has legal access to the information has access to API. And they do the necessary analyses and risk profiles and behavior protocols. So that's our experience. It was very positive. And most importantly, from day one, we talked to IATA about it. We involved them. IATA was very involved and enthusiastic. And their directors talked to our highest authorities, and we were all working toward the same goal, which was successful implementation. So cooperation is very important. And that was another recommendation from ICAO that we followed successfully. I'm a lawyer by training, and I have to be organized, so we did an organizational chart. And everybody knew who was supposed to be doing what. And we had very few problems with the supply of information. So now I'm going to tell you a bit more about what we did in facilitation. In particular, we introduced e-gates, which is common throughout the world, and we installed them in almost all airports for entry and exit. And by the end of this year, it will be in all airports. But in addition, we sought to extend the facilitation technology and make it more democratic. On the basis of our prior success, we engaged in further initiatives. And I won't go into all the details of that because we don't have very much time. Another essential step we took was to give information and get back a lot of information. Information sharing increased significantly. It's important to sign a paper, but if the information doesn't actually flow, then there's no point. So we signed and implemented a number of cooperation agreements with other countries in South America and other countries around the world. For example, last week, we had people from Australia working on our data sharing platform with us, and we're opening up to all countries in the world, and we're going to be the first country to use this particular module. And this is thanks to all the joint work that we did with the authorities of the US. We're very grateful to them because they have introduced us to a lot of state-of-the-art systems. And we got a lot of useful information to make our country safer and more secure and to do further research. And we had a very positive experience with them. Now we are focusing on immigration and residency applications. We have a centralized database, and everything's done in-house by our own technicians, except for specific applications such as API, PNR. Certain aspects of that have to be done internationally. And we automated the processes. Today, as of September 1st this year, almost all procedures for immigration will be digitalized. Everything's been automated and digitalized and paperless, and it's all online. And we have this RADEX system, which is a residency application system where applicants can begin applying online outside of the country. And all of these procedures are intended to ensure security and to make sure that people who are applying for residency in Argentina meet certain basic criteria. And our immigration laws are some of the most open in the world. But we have basic criteria to make sure that the applicants are who they say they are. Of course, 99% of applicants are coming to contribute to our country and have a better future for their families, and they're not coming to do anything nefarious. But if that's the case, if they're found to be ineligible, then they are not allowed in. But as I was saying, all the procedures are automated, and there's one single window. It was hard work. It wasn't easy, but we did it, and we're quite happy with the outcomes. The access to the Interpol database and the ability to do international criminal background checks and information sharing with other agencies have all contributed to our success. And we have figures and statistics that show that Argentina's system is very secure. Of course, we can't compare with the big league in the world of the most developed countries, but we started out with very little, and we were able to build a great deal. So we are getting close to the vanguard countries, and we want to continue to make progress. So I'm not going to say very much more on API PNR. I've already advertised that enough. But I can say that I had asked ICAO and our permanent representative to change the map because they don't have Argentina as having implemented API PNR. Of course, PNR is very expensive, and we have implemented it partially. But by the end of this year, we expect to do a tender and be able to have full implementation of API PNR. So we are very much in compliance with PNR. Let me just find my slide. There we go. Well, I can't find the slide, but I was going to talk about e-gates, and I don't really have to tell you what that is, but I will say that we have to face the facts. E-gates facilitate travel and throughput of passengers. It's more secure, and it's a good way of rationalizing resources. Human resources, people used to do this job manually, and now machines are used for land border checks. We have thousands of kilometers of land borders, so it's very hard to control, and we assign actual people where they need to be assigned to. And as for the biometric single window, I said a bit about this, and the online residency application was key to our success. It helped us reduce the application time from 4 months to a couple of weeks, depending on whether the applicants are from Mercosur or not. And I'm told I'm exceeding my time. I apologize to speakers coming after me. But, and this is the last thing I want to mention, we have electronic travel authorization. It doesn't replace a consular visa in all cases, but it does reduce paper. So thank you very much for your attention, and I apologize for speaking over time, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you very much to ICAO.
Well, I'll say this much. That's the first time I've spoken to a lawyer and didn't have to pay for it. Okay. So the next speaker on the agenda is Harindranathan. He's Executive Director of Airport Authority of India. He currently heads the Indian Aviation Academy in New Delhi as Executive Director. He is a mechanical engineer, accredited international airport professional, and an ICAO qualified course developer, instructor, and validator. He has 33 years in airport experience in airport management. He's held important positions at major international airports like Mumbai, Kolkata, and Chennai. He was also airport director of Chennai International Airport and head of technical and cargo directories at the corporate headquarters. He was a speaker in the Indo-US Aviation Summit 2018 and ICAO 5th Global Aviation Training and Train Air Plus Symposium 2018 that was held in Doha. He's heading a committee for implementing biometric passenger processing standards for Indian government. He was also in the committee for developing standards for drone registration in India. And he's going to be talking about shortening passenger processing time using biometric data. Harindra, the floor is yours.
Good morning. I would like to convey our sincere thanks and gratitude for this opportunity on behalf of Ministry of Civil Aviation, Government of India, and Airports Authority of India. I have a short presentation on implementation of facial recognition-based passenger processing in Indian airports. I would like to give a brief background about Indian aviation scenario to better understand the need for using biometric-based passenger processing at Indian airports. We have 131 airports operating in the country, out of which 17 are international airports. The number is fast growing as government is taking a lot of initiatives for regional connectivity within the country. And we also have multiple airport operators. 6 are prominent, and Airports Authority of India is the largest operator, operating 125 airports. Here is an impressive graph which shows the kind of growth we have in India, especially in the domestic travel. It has been growing in double digit for more than 4 years in a row now, making India the 3rd largest aviation market in the world. And such growth is leading to saturation of most of the airports in India. For example, I have shown here status of some of the important airports. You can see that majority of the airports are handling more than the capacity now, or it is approaching the capacity soon. So as far as India is concerned, the growth has already overtaken the capacity. Construction of a new terminal is a long-drawn process, as you all know, and it can't be an immediate solution for this growth. The only option for the airports is to increase the throughput of the existing terminals. And this was realized by each airport operator and started looking for quick solution. Of course, shortening the passenger processing time was the only quick solution available to us, and that is my topic today. Each airport operator started working on biometric-based passenger processing in silos. Soon the government realized the need for standardization of biometric processing in the country for a uniform experience for the passenger. So a technical working committee with the representatives from airport operators and airlines and other stakeholders was formed by the government. And this committee prepared the standards and submitted to the government. Yesterday we were listening to Mr. Simon mentioning about ABC, that is airlines, then binding legislation and collaboration. And this was exactly we were doing for almost a year. We had extensive discussion with airlines, other stakeholders. Then we have formulated the civil aviation requirement and promulgated that, and the policy was also issued by the Government of India. So we were following exactly the same process what Mr. Simon was mentioning yesterday. Facial recognition-based processing was identified by the committee as the most suited one, and a policy was developed. The government released this policy called DigiYatra, which means digital journey. This picture shows the important touch points under the DigiYatra. In fact, it starts with the booking of a ticket. The passenger has to quote DigiYatra ID when he is booking a ticket. I will explain how it is done. Then when on the day of travel, he approaches the airport and there is an entry gate check process. Then passenger goes for check-in or backdrop. Then he goes for the pre-embarkation security check. And in case of international travel, he goes to the immigration. And finally, the boarding. In India, there is a unique security process. Only a passenger having a valid ticket and within the period of travel can only enter the airport, that too after establishing his identity at the gate. So you can't freely enter into the terminals of Indian airports. So what you see in the picture is a security personnel stopping you at the gate and checking your credentials, your ticket, and the identity. And automation of this process was quite challenging for us. what we wanted to achieve was a single scan of the ticket or a boarding pass should validate the ticket and the personal identity. This was important for reducing the process time as well as for a better experience for the passenger. Otherwise, he has to first pick up his ticket, scan it, then pick up his identity, scan it, or passport and scan it. So it takes a lot of time and may irritate the passenger, whereas in our process we wanted, he just scans one ticket and everything is done. In order to achieve this unique requirement, a central identity management platform is planned for a one-time registration by the passengers. To establish a central identity management platform, a joint venture company of airport operators have been formed, the 6 airport operators I was mentioning earlier. The central identity management platform is being established and it is expected to be rolled out by December 2019. Initially, 6 airports will be rolling out this program in the country. A little bit about the central identity management platform. Passengers can register in this program online. It's a voluntary process. The registration will be authenticated when you travel first time through an airport. This authentication can be an automated process if you are opting for other authentication. So online biometric verification will be done and you will be authenticated. If you don't opt for it, then you can go through a manual process and you will be authenticated. In either case, on the time of authentication, your facial image will be captured and updated to the profile you have created for yourself. We have been hearing about the data privacy and privacy by design, etc. In the last 3 days. This is exactly we have done. We are not asking for too many data: passenger name, mobile number, email ID, and an image which will be stored in the profile of the passenger. Once a passenger is registered, he or she can code this DigiYatra ID reference every time he or she is booking a ticket. There is a form of identification in the booking called a national ID, and we are proposing to use this national ID where you can code your DigiYatra ID. Then importantly, the airlines will share the DCS data with the departure airport 8 hours before. You know that the passenger is contacting the airlines and the airport has no clue who has booked for what flight. So we have made a civil aviation requirement through which the airlines is mandated to share the data with airport operator under an agreement. And this data will include the PNR data as well as the DigiYatra ID the passenger has coded. Coming back to our entry gate process, which was challenging, and I just wanted to explain how this challenge was converted into a good opportunity. You all know when you want to implement a biometric-based processing, the first thing is the registration of a passenger. In most of the airports where it is implemented, the passenger has to scan his boarding pass, then scan his passport, and then he is registered. So it's slightly different here. Here it's a demonstration. We can see there is a biometric solution of the airport, then there is an identity management platform, and there is an e-gate, and a passenger is waiting to scan his boarding pass or ticket. The passenger is scanning his boarding pass or ticket, the PNR detail is picked up, his face is captured by a camera at the gate, and these two information are sent to the local system. In the local system, corresponding to the PNR, you have a DigiYatra ID, so the DigiYatra ID is picked up, and your face captured is sent to the central management platform, where it checks and confirms your identity. And once it is confirmed, it goes to the gate and gate opens. And most important, when it is done, a single token is created. The PNR data and your face is combined so that your face becomes your ticket and identity throughout your journey within that airport. Now, once you have entered the next stage, if you have not taken a home printed boarding pass, you will go for a self check-in kiosk. So you don't have to select an airline or you don't have to enter your PNR. The moment you approach the kiosk, your details are popped up, then you complete your check-in process. Next, if you have a baggage to drop, same procedure, you stand in front of it and its data is populated. You print out your tag and attach and drop your bag. Then same, you have to enter into the pre-embarkation security zone. You can walk in through a e-gate. It's operated through facial recognition system. And finally, even for the boarding, you are recognized through the facial recognition. You don't have to show your boarding pass, you don't have to show your ID, and you can be rest assured you will not enter into a wrong boarding gate, intentionally or otherwise. So all these locations, you are not scanning anything, you are just walking, and you are identified through 1:n matching of the facial biometric. Of course, in the second phase, we would be integrating the system with our immigration so that the international travel will also be similar. So now coming to the benefits for the passenger, that should be the selling point for passenger to willingly opt for this scheme, because we can't make passenger compulsory that you have to join this program, because he has to share his data voluntarily and join this program. So the benefits are more important for selling this project. So the passenger need not to show paper ticket or boarding pass at multiple locations within the airport, except for the entry point where he is registered for that travel once. And it's an integrated travel document and identity. It's a seamless access to all checkpoints at the airports, and reduced queue waiting time, which is an expectation through this process, and the experience is seamless and enhanced for the passenger. Airport operator, the information available about the passenger. Today, the airport has no clue how many passengers are there at a given time at the airport, or when a passenger is entered, or when he has boarded the aircraft. There's an information available of dwell time so that he can plan the resources or benchmark his services. Improve the throughput without physical expansion is a major achievement we are looking for through this implementation. Then data analytics and for the airport planning and investment for the future. And capability of integrating various services, service providers like launch or other services at the airport, real-time data on airport utilization, peak hour handling, etc. For airlines, passenger position awareness, which is not there today. The airlines would know that whether a passenger has already entered the airport or he has entered the security zone, whether he will be able to make it or he will not be able to make it, so that they don't delay the flight and they can either offload the passenger or they know that passenger will make it. Punctuality, passenger experience, reduced processes, and this is my last slide. Security, it's improved throughput is an expected outcome. Enhanced security, because the system is helping you in the security. Process is frictionless. And better passenger profiling, because the system is helping you in your activities. And this is the larger picture we are looking at. A single registration will enable delivery of all possible services in an air travel online to the passenger, starting from maybe planning your trip, booking your ticket, travel to airport, all facilities within the airport, and reaching your destination. So we expect the service providers to come out with innovative solutions of delivery using single identity, which is DigiYatra identity. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Rendranath, for a very concise presentation of what you're planning to do. So for the final speaker of this session, okay, I think many of you have heard him speak before. Michael Hardin is the Director of Policy and Planning at CBP Exit Transformation Office, charged with improving the ability of CBP to biometrically match entry and exit data collected from foreign nationals. He has over 20 years of experience at DHS and its predecessor agencies working on issues related to immigration, biometrics, and counterterrorism. Prior to CBP, coming to CBP in 2013, he worked at the DHS Office of Policy on a wide variety of issues, including biometrics and data sharing with the intelligence community and foreign countries. Throughout his career, he's spoken on a variety of biometric-related conferences in the United States and around the world, and he has a bachelor's degree from Villanova University and a law degree from George Washington University Law School, and he's going to talk about the entry-exit initiatives for secure and streamlined travel experience. Michael, the floor is yours.
Got it. This one, right? Or just okay. Okay, got it. Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. So I realize that I am the only thing standing between you and a beautiful Montreal afternoon, and for my own safety, I will keep it as quick and short as possible. I want to also thank ICAO, not just for having CBP come and speak on this topic again, but also for their leadership in this area. So I know that really conferences like this and in the identity management area, ICAO and also IATA have really been leaders, and it's helped us a tremendous amount, and we're very grateful. So I'm going to talk today about the Traveler Verification Service, which is the service that CBP has built to facilitate international travel in and out of the United States. I don't have time to go into the ins and outs of exactly how it works, but just for today, it is a system that allows us to identify for a particular stakeholder, and that can be a different government agency or ourselves or an airline or an airport, who a person is at any point in the traveler journey, just by having their photo taken. So it doesn't require any enrollment process, and it doesn't require any token. It doesn't require the person to provide a document and have that document be scanned or looked at in any way. So that's the gist of what we're going through. Now, when you look at this, let's see, make sure I get it right. Oh, spacebar. Okay, I got it. All right, so when you look at this chart here, what you see is like these are all the places in which you have to have your identity checked, at least in America. I know they're different in different countries. And when you get there, the process is essentially a manual process at all of these checkpoints. So each checkpoint is exactly the same. You hand your document to someone, they look at it, they look at you, they make sure you're the same person, they maybe look at your document a little bit more, and they hand your document back to me, and then you go to the next one. And none of these are connected to each other, and none of these communicate with each other. So what you have is kind of a frustrating experience for a passenger and a very inefficient and not as secure process as you could have if you had some kind of coherent end-to-end process. And I know a lot of the buzzwords, and I use them all the time, so the buzzwords that we hear especially lately, and they all sort of fit together in one kind of concept, and it's sort of one ID or end-to-end travel or seamless travel or curb to gate. All these things are concepts to describe more or less the same thing, which is that a passenger can arrive at an airport, go all the way through their trip, and never pull out a passport, never pull out a boarding pass, never get a boarding pass, and that's the kind of system that essentially we are building in the United States. So the next slide I'm going to show is a video. It's not very long, it's about a minute, but I think it's the best way I can describe what we show because it's an NBC News story about our deployment in Atlanta.
And your flight is one of the first departures using facial recognition technology from curb to gate.
At the busiest airport in the world, Terminal F check-in is now as simple as look, smile, and click.
Found you real fast.
Delta's outbound international passengers no longer required to scan their passports or carry a ticket. It's pretty simple. You walk up to the kiosk, tap facial recognition, the camera recognizes your face from your passport photo already on file, and checks you in. When you check a bag, no need for a passport or a ticket. The camera recognizes your face again. By early next year, your face will be your boarding pass for TSA. Same process for boarding the flight. Facial recognition, and I'm on the plane.
So that's the gist of it, right? So pretty simple concept, really. But the idea is we use the data that we already have on file. It can be passport data, it can be visa data, it can be face data that we've taken on entry, and we connect that to the biographic data we already have on file, and then we can I offer an identity as a service platform, which is what TVS is. So we're essentially offering an identity provider that anyone can use. So one thing we hear a lot is, my boss will go to conferences, like the Amazon conference, much broader in scope and topics than something like this. And so she'll get questions from people like bankers, and they'll say, I would love to use this, but I don't know where to go for an identity service. There's no place to go. Everyone who's doing these identity checks is kind of on their own. And so we're trying to sort of come into the aviation sector and the immigration and border sector and sort of offer what we can do to make the process better. We can offer an identity as a service platform. So one of the things that we're doing is fixing our own stuff, right? So this is on inbound processing. These are just photos from that, and it's essentially a couple things that we can use the face recognition for to make our own inbound process better. One is an automatic capture of the photo, so a photo of a person. So by the time the person gets to an officer and is seeking admission to the United States, the officer already knows who they are. They don't have to hand over the passport, have that passport be scanned, and that saves time and that multiplied by however many people in line. Family processing, we're working on this. We haven't gotten it quite yet, but the idea is you can take a picture of a family, 4 or 5 pictures in a row, and get them all at the same time, know they're a unit, and pull all those identities together and process once, not 5 times. So you're not handing over 5 passports, it's one process for a family unit. And the last 2 are sort of single touch and reduced data entry. Those are just the gist of that is we want our law enforcement trained officers to do law enforcement work, not administrative work. So we want them to do less typing, less scanning of documents, less connecting cameras or moving cameras or things like that. What we want to get to is a process where the officer can spend their time talking to a person, asking them whatever questions they feel like they need to ask, and the systems and the computers can do what they do better, which is match faces and handle data and move data where it needs to be. So these things will have simplified our arrival process and really speeded up the time in which people can enter into the United States. This next slide is a good sense of how many airlines and airports have come on board today. So these airlines and airports, I don't want to suggest that every single airport that's on this list has every flight doing this biometric process. They don't, and we're limited in the TSA space too. But each one of these airlines and airports have essentially given us a commitment that they're putting sort of money on the table, and they're investing in cameras, in processes, and equipment that can help use the TBS system that we provide for free, and let them have a biometrically enabled boarding process or a biometrically enabled bag drop process. Or whatever it is they're seeking. So our idea is that slowly, as we put the pieces together, we'll build it up over time. Some of the metrics on the right, our match rate is it's 97 point, it's a little higher than that, between 98 and 99% match rate. Match rates have a little variation in terms of the quality of the photo, and that's another thing we're working on. Airports are often very bright or very dark, depending on the time of day, and lights coming into windows, and so there's a lot of variation in terms of what the quality of the images are, and we're working to sort of narrow that down so that each image can be matchable. And once you get to the image quality question solved, you are much better off, and the match rate will go much higher than we have it now. We've done about 23,000 flights, and on exit we've done 3.2 million travelers so far. So what you just saw is 3.2 million people have gone through it. On the entry, we've done a higher number, about 10 million. We do it in a lot of our pre-clearance locations currently, and a lot of airports domestically. So that's just a sort of a snapshot of where we are in time right now. What we see here is, do I need to, yeah, okay. So what do we sort of get out of all this collectively? And I say we, I mean like both governments and airlines and airports and private sector partners. We get operational efficiency, so we get a better process for the customer, for the traveler. The traveler doesn't have to worry about pulling their passport out or having a boarding pass and wandering around and making sure I have my paper all the time. They can have the comfort of knowing my face is my ID, that's all I need, I just can go through the process doing that, and that's faster, and it's better and more better for the passenger. So I sort of skipped one there. So it's sort of a passenger satisfaction, peace of mind kind of concept, and also an operational efficiency concept. It's better, but those are related. It's also more secure. So now this is a hard concept for us as CBP to sort of admit to. I mean, we have 50,000 officers. You don't want to admit to your 50,000 officer corps, a machine is better than you at matching faces to photos, right? You don't want, we train people, look at the photo, how to do it, hold it up, look at the person, all this training, we provide it, but facts are facts, and the machines are better at doing it, and they get it right much more than people do. And when we try to put, tests through the system, we find machines perform much better. So we actually get a more secure process in addition to a more efficient process. Now, we're used to thinking about security and facilitation as sort of a zero-sum game, and when you want one, you take from the other. So if the process is going to be more secure, then it's going to be slower, but that's just sort of our thinking, and it's not really true. I mean, face biometrics and biometrics in general can get you both things at the same time. It can get you a more facilitated process and a more secure process at the same time. And the last one, and the previous speaker sort of alluded to this too, is sort of industry vitality. And what we mean by that is, the aviation industry is growing at a rate that's unsustainable in using current processing. So in the United States, incoming air travel is growing 5% a year, every year. 5% higher, 5% higher, 5% higher every year. Now that's great. Economically, that's awesome for the United States, for other countries. Travel is good, it's economically helpful, but when you're the person, like all the people are coming at you to be processed, you've got to figure out how you're going to do that. You got to figure out how you're going to process people, and you've got to do it in a new way. You can't, I'm not getting 5% more officers a year. I'm not getting 5% new airports in a year, or new terminals in a year. So I've got to have new ways of doing business so that I can continue to ensure that the system just doesn't collapse on us. So we think that this is the kind of process that can extend the lifetime of our aviation infrastructure, 50 or 75 years. So what are the other implications of, I know this is a lot, the other implications of what we're building is sort of the regulatory thought of how aviation is operated in the United States. So what we have done a lot, especially since 9/11, is the government has put a lot of requirements more and more on carriers and on airports, right? So give us the names of the people flying. Make sure you check the documents. You've got to check it before they can drop it back. I mean, there's one thing after another about what they are able to do and how they have to do it. But this kind of process is going to flip that a little bit, and what we want to get to is a process where government does government things like identity management, border processing, and airlines and airports do what they're good at, which is moving people from A to B. And this will sort of streamline those regulations or be an enabler for us to take those responsibilities back. Last, I think that, and this is my last slide, what we are getting to, I think, is when we move to the digital travel credential, I think what we're doing today in the US, we hope, is going to facilitate the digital travel credential, because we're getting people used to the concept of you move around without documents, you move around without paper. And that's a precursor to what the digital travel credential would be. And so we're hopeful that what we're doing and what other people in other countries are doing are going to fit into this larger model. I think that we are working towards a, let me make sure I get it right because I wrote it down. We're moving towards a new transformational era. So between like roughly 2005 and 2009 was a real transformational era in terms of aviation and border processing. There was the e-passport, there was fingerprints that were brought into visa processing, there was API and PNR, there was RFID, there was all these things that kind of came together at the same time. And then that really transformed how we do the border. Now I think from 2020 to 2024 or 25, it's going to be a similar kind of transformational period. And this period is going to be premised on the digital travel credential, on face biometrics, on reduction in paper, on new trust frameworks, blockchain. All these things are going to contribute to another transformation of the border and aviation processing. And so I think we at CBP are ready for that. We're looking forward to it. And we'll work to work with everyone else to do that too. So if you want to see anything, let me know, and we'll try to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for that excellent presentation. We don't have enough time, so I don't think we're going to be taking questions on this, but I would just like to summarize what we heard in this session. The first we heard from Beatrice, who talked about, who pointed out the fact that 80% of our cargo is done by shipping, and we do need to worry about the quality of life of the people who are involved in that trade. She also talked about the alignment of the SID standards with ICAO, Doc 9303, and to its further amendments, which is very good cooperation between two agencies, and also emphasizes the central role that ICAO plays in this kind of environment. Diego then talked about building capacity, using your own human resources, which is your biggest capital, but not forgetting to cooperate with others and use other people's expertise in building your own expertise. And both Harindranath and Michael Hardin presented two different perspectives on using biometrics for processing travelers and improving travel experience. And the one difference was that in Harindranath's presentation, we heard about a central identity management platform, which is by airport operators. And what we heard from Michael was about the government providing identity as a service. And Michael, I'm sorry to do this to you, but the real big takeaway from me is that CBP is worried about the traveler, based on my experience at your airport, right? Okay, so that concludes our session here. A round of applause for our speakers, and then I hand it back to Denis.
And why not a round of applause for the moderator, Rajesh? Yes. And congratulations to all for your on-time performance. Terrific. 12 noon, we made it. I'd invite you to remain on stage for the moment. We will now have the closing remarks to the symposium delivered by Mr. Samuel Lucas, the representative of Australia on the ICAO Council and chairperson of the Air Transport Committee. So as he's making his way up, we can applaud as well.
Excellencies, fellow representatives on the ICAO Council, ladies and gentlemen. All good things must come to an end, and so the 15th ICAO Traveller Identification Programme Symposium must also come to an end. ICAO greatly appreciates the time and thoughtful viewpoints that all of the speakers have shared with us this week. And we've been fortunate enough to have representatives drawn from all of the government and industry stakeholders involved in the implementation of the TRIP strategy. Some 600 participants have taken part this week from 94 states, 12 international organisations and 39 industry partners. Over the last few days, we have addressed the theme of bridging the physical-digital document divide. And I think we need themes that are slightly easier to say. I don't know how everyone else has gone saying that, but I keep tripping up over it. We've explored every element of the ICAO TRIP strategy, continuing ICAO's mandate and leadership role on machine-readable travel document issues. We all recognise that there is significant work ahead for states and ICAO in the implementation of coordinated activities aimed at effectively improving the security aspects of travel documents in a sustainable manner. Like past symposiums, this event has offered a global forum for the exchange of information and the sharing of best practices, and I hope it has given everyone valuable insights on current and emerging issues. New technologies and processes will help states, industry, and government to achieve their goals. I hope that you have all explored the exhibition outside this hall, talking with the vendors and seeing the latest technical solutions available to improve facilitation and minimise the risk of document fraud. The international travel environment continues to change dramatically. New creative and effective solutions are emerging to securely facilitate travellers through airports and border controls. We heard on the first day about the ICAO Digital Travel Credential Initiative to permanently substitute a conventional passport with a digital representation of the traveller's identity. As we've seen in the last 3 days, the traveller identification process starts a long way from the border itself. The value of a travel document is measured by the trust and confidence placed in it by inspection agencies, which comes not just from its physical composition, but also the criteria applied in determining entitlement to that document. Delivering the potential of e-passports requires a robust level of confidence in the legitimacy of the document's bearer and the document itself. In any journey, you need to know your end destination and choose the best route. With the phase out of non-machine readable travel documents almost complete, the time is fast approaching for ICAO to look at a possible roadmap towards an e-passport standard to help ensure we can all deliver on interoperable and dependable e-passports. When a state starts issuing e-passports, becoming a member of the ICAO PKD should be one of the first steps. But the next question that arises is how to operate a national PKD and e-passport validation system in order to make the best use of e-passports. I hope that the information provided in this symposium has been useful. Similarly, implementing API and PNR systems gives rise to questions, and again, I hope the information shared in this event will be of help. I would like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to the invaluable work which is done by the Technical Advisory Group on TRIP, the TAG TRIP, and thank the many states who voluntarily provide ICAO with the workforce of experts required to undertake its work to contribute to the ICAO strategic objective of enhancing security and facilitation. The Council looks forward to you continuing your work, not only to implement the traveller identification program we have today, but to prepare our frameworks for the future. Much has been said this week about the important resolutions of the United Nations Security Council in the area of aviation security and facilitation. These touch all aspects of the work being conducted on traveller identification and link together traveller identification and other facilitation initiatives, such as the Security Council's mandating of both API and PNR, which ICAO is working to deliver. They highlight how the many international organisations in this field are working together, and we heard many examples of this week. This is a high point for me to end on today, because it is a great example of how we must all continue to work together, across borders, across organisational boundaries, and across sectoral limits, as we strive to keep international civil aviation safe, secure, and efficient for all passengers, so that it can deliver for the global community. It remains for me to offer my sincere thanks to everyone involved in making this symposium a success. It would be impossible for me to list everyone involved in this great team effort, but I would like to highlight all of our government and industry partners for their presentations and exhibits. The ICAO team in the Secretariat, who have worked diligently, largely behind the scenes, to enable us to enjoy this week's program, and of course the interpreters, who've done their usual superb job in making sure that we can all speak to each other in this multilingual community. At ICAO, we look forward to welcoming you back to Montreal for the 16th Symposium on the Traveller Identification Program in April 2020. And as we close this 15th Symposium, I wish you all a safe, secure, efficient, and well-facilitated trip home. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. I'm jumping in the program for two special assignments. One, I want to be sure that we will thank the chair of the ATC who formally opened that meeting and closed the session. So firstly, a round of applause for Mr. Sam Lucas. Secondly, of course, on behalf of Dr. Liu, the Secretary General, to thank you for being with us and to request that you appropriately brief your delegation to the Assembly. It's important that during the debate, which will lead to the formal process of the new work program, what you have discussed here, what we have anticipated, what we have seen, we are witnesses, is appropriately captured so that we can move. And then, of course, in addition to the commitment, it should be on the screen now. I think for the first time, we have had the opportunity to plan for the next continuing to support, to listen to us, and to be sure that we do the best. So really look at your calendars, find the appropriate time and funding to join us again in Montreal. Merci beaucoup.